Good morning, everybody. We got some pretty interesting news to talk about today. Actually, all the stuff we're going to talk about came out yesterday, but it all happened later in the day after I had already uploaded. So I figured instead of uploading really late last night, I would just wait it out and get this up in the morning for you guys. Before we talk about the trade that took place yesterday, actually there were two trades that happened yesterday, but one of them was just a cap dump, Anton Strawman, and some draft picks going to Arizona for I believe a 7th round pick, basically for free. I don't really talk about cap dump trades at all in my videos because there's not really a whole lot to say. It's basically just one team getting rid of a bad contract, using some of their draft picks to do it, and one team weaponizing their cap space. But anyways, before I break down the trade that we're going to talk about in this video, first I want to talk about some restricted free agents who actually weren't given qualifying offers yesterday. For those of you who don't know, yesterday was the deadline for NHL teams to give qualifying offers to their restricted free agents who are still without a contract. And what a qualifying offer means is it's basically a team just retaining the RFA's rights. If you can't get a deal done with the RFA before the deadline, you still have to give them a qualifying offer, because if you don't, then they just head straight to unrestricted free agency. And there's some pretty interesting names who weren't given a qualifying offer and are going to be heading to unrestricted free agency. I have 6 players we're going to touch on here in this video. The first 3 players we're going to be talking about are all centers: Pius Suter, Ryan Donato, and Danton Heinen. All of these players are going to be hitting the open market tomorrow. Of all the players that were not given a qualifying offer, I was definitely most surprised by Chicago deciding not to qualify Pius Suter. He just had a fantastic rookie season, 27 points in 55 games. He played a lot of top line minutes on Chicago with Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat. If you're wondering why it is Chicago didn't decide to qualify Suter, it's almost certainly because they were worried about what he could potentially be awarded in arbitration after putting up solid numbers as a rookie. Basically the same reason as to why Carolina traded Alex Nedeljkovic to the Red Wings. Chicago is trying to save money, especially after bringing in Seth Jones and signing him to that massive extension. That all being said, if I were a Hawks fan, I feel like I would be pretty upset with this decision. I personally viewed Pius Suter as somebody who is going to be maybe not an important part of the Blackhawks future, but at least a part of the Blackhawks future. I mean, he's only 25 years old. I guess he's not though, and I definitely think there's going to be a lot of teams interested in signing Pius Suter in free agency, especially a team looking for a middle 6 centerman. Honestly, as a Red Wings fan, wouldn't mind Detroit taking a shot at Pius Suter again, because he is still only 25 years old and Detroit is pretty weak down the middle. Ryan Donato not being qualified by the San Jose Sharks, that's really not all that surprising of a decision. He was left unprotected by them in the expansion draft, so realistically this is something we should have all saw coming. But he's a player like Pius Suter who I also expect to get a lot of interest from teams in free agency, given the fact that he is only 25 years old, has a lot of skill, and has had short little stretches throughout his career where it looks like he could potentially be a top 6 forward. It's just kind of a matter of him finding that consistency. And the last centerman we're going to talk about before we move on to the next 3 players, Danton Heinen, 26 years old, very intriguing player. He had a 47-point season back in 2017-18 with the Bruins, but his offensive game has kind of fell off of a cliff since then. He's going to get signed just based off of the offensive upside that he once shown with the Boston Bruins, and he is still a pretty effective penalty killer. But if I were to rank the 3 players that you can see on the screen here in terms of who I would want the Red Wings to sign, I think it would just be in the order that they actually are on the screen: Pius Suter, Ryan Donato, and then Danton Heinen third. Taking a look at some wingers now, we have 2 from the Boston Bruins, Andre Kasha and Nick Ritchie, and then Evgeny Svechnikov, formerly of the Detroit Red Wings. None of these 3 players not being qualified was a big surprise at all. All 3 of them were left unprotected by their respective teams in the expansion draft. The Bruins probably could have got something done with both of these guys. I mean, they have above 20 million cap space right now, but then again, they don't have a goaltender, and they probably want to bring back David Krejci. I'm a pretty big fan of Andre Kasha going back to his first couple of seasons with the Ducks. This is a guy with sneaky goal scoring ability. He's also a pretty effective two-way player as well. He was on track to have a real solid and productive NHL career, but it's kind of been derailed by injuries, so I can see why Boston wants to move on. He's definitely going to get looks from teams just based off of the fact that at one point it looked like he was on track to have a really promising career. He's had a 20-goal season. He also had another season in which he scored at above a 20-goal pace. I'm very intrigued to see where he goes. I think if Andre Kasha can get healthy, he'd be a really nice addition to any team. I'm definitely a little bit more surprised by Boston not qualifying Nick Ritchie than I am about them not qualifying Andre Kasha, because Nick Ritchie had a really good season, arguably the best of his career. He's a former top 10 draft pick. He's 25 years old. He brings a really nice mix of physicality and goal scoring touch. He had a career high 15 this past season. I'd imagine there's going to be a good amount of interest in Nick Ritchie for sure. He's constantly improved throughout his career. I really think there's a player here that can get you 40 points, maybe 20 goals in a season. And lastly, Evgeny Svechnikov of the Red Wings. It pains me to say this, but it just didn't work. We all saw this coming. At this point, I think we can safely say he's a bust, at least for the Red Wings. I really liked what I saw from Svechnikov in the small sample size he played for the Wings this past season, so I believe that maybe there's a salvageable NHL career there. He's got a lot of offensive skill. I just don't know. It was reported that the Red Wings are interested in bringing him back on a two-way contract, but for Evgeny's sake, I really hope that doesn't happen. I hope he can get a new opportunity somewhere else and make the most out of it. I wouldn't mind seeing him go to Carolina to play with his brother. I think that would be pretty sweet. So those were, in my opinion, some interesting names that were not given a qualifying offer, and will be hitting the open market tomorrow. Of all the 6 players we just talked about, who would you want your favorite team to sign the most? I think my top 2 out of that list of players would be Nick Ritchie and Pius Suter. I talked about that way longer than I anticipated though, so now let's get into the big trade that took place yesterday. The Winnipeg Jets acquired defenseman Brendan Dillon from the Washington Capitals in exchange for Winnipeg's second-round pick in the 2022 draft, and also their second-round pick in the 2023 draft. It's definitely not a big surprise that the Capitals have decided to move on from Brendan Dillon. We've known basically all offseason that they want to clear some cap space, and it was really evident given the fact they left players unprotected like Justin Schultz and Brendan Dillon actually. And when you take that into consideration, I feel like the Washington Capitals actually did really well here. They cleared up cap space, which was obviously their #1 priority, and they got 2 second-round picks for a player they just left unprotected in the expansion draft, who they literally could have lost for nothing a couple of days ago. So if you're a Capitals fan, I feel like you have to be pretty happy with that. Now looking at this trade from the point of view of the Winnipeg Jets, although they definitely overpaid a little bit for Brendan Dillon, in my opinion, this is a fantastic addition to an area of the team where they desperately needed help on the left side. Brendan Dillon is going to come in and immediately slot in at the #2 spot on their depth chart on the left side behind Josh Morrissey, and actually given the way Morrissey played this past season, you could make a case that Brendan Dillon is #1 on the depth chart on the left side. He really rounds out their top 4 nicely. You have Josh Morrissey, Neil Pionk, Dylan DeMello, and now of course Brendan Dillon. If Josh Morrissey can have a big bounce back season, which hopefully he can now with another guy to come in to take some of the pressure off him, Winnipeg's blue line might not be in the worst shape. For any Jets fans that may not have watched the Washington Capitals very much or aren't all that familiar with Brendan Dillon who want to know what you're getting here, Brendan Dillon is a very solid and reliable defensive top 4 defenseman. Although he is more so known for his defensive game, he's not useless offensively by any means. This is a guy who can see the ice very well. He can get the puck moving up the ice, chipping some offense here and there. He had 19 points this past season in just 56 games. He makes this Jets team better right away, and again, echoing what I said earlier in the video, he makes them better in an area where they desperately needed to be better, and that is the left side. So overall thoughts on the trade? I'm honestly kind of digging it for both sides. If I had to pick a winner, I guess I would lean towards Washington just because they got amazing value here for a guy they had just left unprotected a couple of days ago. Jets fans are going to love Brendan Dillon though, and this is exactly the type of trade the Jets had to make if they wanted to improve their team. So that is going to wrap up this morning's news video. Be sure to get down there in the comment section down below and let me know your thoughts on everything we talked about today, especially on this trade. I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say. Who do you think won the deal and why? All that kind of stuff.